Thank you very much for joining us today for our stock management course, and we're going to discuss now the item management, just to come back and show you what have we already discussed, and that is your understanding of stock management, your learning center, your stock setup flow, and then also we have already discussed the stock orders. So now we are with item management. Now under the item management, we will discuss your active and inactive item, discontinued stock, Medprax and IQuest updates, excluding items from Medprax or IQuest updates, create new items and edit items. We also will discuss your Nappi Codes, prices, item linking, subclasses, your negative stock levels, and your barcodes. All of this information is on the Learning Center and also in the booklet that you can print out of the GoodX Learning Center. So please go and look at this information. We are going to discuss this, but if you have any questions in the future or you're unsure, please just go back to this booklet. Now I want to show you the item management flow. We're just going to see that first. If you see the correct page on your screen, you will see we have the item management one. You will always, please remember, as discussed previously, if you use Medprax, you will have two different lists. A medicine list, that the code will always start with a GMED for GMED, and you have a material list, and that code will always start with a 0201. Now, if you are using IQuest, and that's mostly for hospitals, you will only have one list, and the medicine and materials will be combined. The code will still start with a GMED for medicine, and the materials will still start with a 0201, even if you only have one list. But when you're using Medprax, you will have two different lists, two different categories. Okay. Now, just to make sure that when you are using Medprax or IQuest, that information, we get it from Medprax and we get it from IQuest. We do not keep that information in the system. Now, some of the information that you will receive from Medprax will be your descriptions, your Nappi Codes, your pack sizes, and the prices on the stock items. We do not keep that information. We receive it from Medprax, and you pay a license fee every month for IQuest or Medprax to using that information. The Medprax is updated every week, once a week, and IQuest is updated every day. Now, depending on which one do you use, you must make sure, if you're not on GoodX Cloud, you need to update this information on a weekly basis or a daily basis, depending on which one do you use. If you're on GoodX Cloud, we will update your items, your stock items, on a weekly basis, or depending on which one, daily basis otherwise. So make sure, but always, if you're in a cloud, just double check if your Medprax was updated on the last week. If maybe for example, it wasn't updated, please let us know that we fix that and make sure you're on the list that we need to update. Okay. Now, when you look at item management, here you will see your items will always come in as an inactive item. So when you do your stock, your update from Medprax or IQuest, they will also give you all of the new items that were created. That items will always come in as an inactive item. Then you have to make the item active or inactive, depending if you're going to use that item. Now, if we look at IQuest, for instance, every day they give out about 200 to 400 items per day, new items that comes into the market. Now, you don't want that 400 items to be active now in your stock items. Then you're never going to be able to have good stock management processes in your practice. So that's why we bring it in as inactive items. And only when you use that, now you're going to use that item or buy it for the first time, you need to make that item active. Sorry. Now, in the flow, you will make, if you're using that item, you will make it active. Otherwise, all of the other items will be inactive on your system, and you can always go and search on it. So I'm going to show you in the GoodX system now, but you can filter on show all items, and the system will show them active and inactive items. Now, when the item is marked as inactive, the item will be hide, unlinked, and it will have no levels. Okay, so you must make the item active. When you make your item active, you must link the item to the correct counting locations. If you have multiple counting locations for one item, you must make sure that price is correct, and when you're working with markups, that you put in the markup on that item. If you have a general rule, say for instance 30% on all your medicine, then that will be fine. If you did let GoodX know that we have to set that up, then automatically when you create a new when a new item is activated, then the system will automatically put that 30% onto that item. But please remember, if GoodX is not notified of that discussion, that you are having a multiple rule over everything, then the system is not going to be able to do that. And also keep in mind, there is certain SEP rules that you're allowed to ask only a certain percentage on certain items. Please keep all of that in mind when you put on your own markups onto your items. Then you have your subclasses. Now subclasses, you will use that for cycling counts. Now a subclass can be, say for instance, syringes. So you tell the system, this week I want to count all my syringes in the whole practice, and he will go and see, okay, on shelf 1 you have syringes, on shelf 5 you have syringes, and it will only give you snapshots according to that. We will come to that we will come to the stock take purposes and also the cycle count, but that can be used for subclasses. You can also draw reports according to subclasses, and all of your reports you can filter on a subclass, for instance. So say for instance you also have a subclass, let's say flu medication, then you can draw a report of all the flu medication that you have. You have to link that item to that subclass. Then from the item linking, you can print your barcodes and also put it onto your item. And you must, from your item linking, link it to a counting location. The counting location is already linked to a general bin, is already linked to a warehouse, and is already linked to a service center. So just keep that in mind. So the process flow that you need to do is, when you make an item active, you need to make that item active in the first hand. Then you have to link that item to a counting location. You must check the prices and the markup on that item. You print the barcodes if you're using the barcodes, and when you're using the subclasses, you must link that item to the correct subclass also. Now, in the same process, you will have exclusions from Medprax and IQuest. Now, say for instance, you put on your own price and you don't want Medprax to update that price on a weekly basis. You must exclude that price from the Medprax update, otherwise the system will automatically update it at the end of the week. So any changes that you make on your items, the system, every time when there is a Medprax or IQuest update, the system will automatically update that. And if you don't exclude it from the Medprax update. So you can say, for instance, sometimes some clients, the description on the Medprax is not a really good description. They will go and type in their own description, and they will say exclude this description from the Medprax update. So the Medprax update will still update the prices and the Nappi Codes and so on. So just make sure all of the items that you exclude from Medprax, that stays your responsibility to update that items. If you exclude the prices on certain items, you must put in a process in your practice to make sure that you update that items. Okay, so please keep that in mind. And then you have different settings on all your warehouses. You have free settings on your warehouses. You can decide that you allow negative values that a system can go into a negative value, or you allow it but with a warning. So every time when an item is built, the system will warn the user and tell, you don't have stock of this item. Actually, you can't use this item because you don't have stock in your practice according to the system. But I'm still going to allow you to build a patient. Then you have a setting that says, do not allow negative values. Now, it's important to remember that when you allow your system to go in a negative value, that your stock management is actually out of the door. Because you allow the system to go in a negative value, and please keep in mind that that will be a problem with your cost of sales, the value of your item. Because when the item goes into a negative value and the system knows, okay, but you don't have stock of this item, it doesn't know which price or which value to validate that item to. So please keep in mind that there must be a good reason why you are working in negative values, because actually you don't have that stock and you can't give it out to the patient. So the best practice is to set up your warehouse as do not allow negative values. But the problem with that is that the system will then not allow you to bill a patient if you don't have stock on the system. So say for instance, your personnel that capture your stock supplier invoices goes on leave for 2 weeks, and you don't have somebody else for backup to capture that supplier invoices when you receive that stock. The stock items is already on your shelf, but the supplier invoice was not captured. Then you will not be able to bill the patients. So just keep in mind that your processes in your practice must be correct, and that you have a backup plan if the supplier invoices cannot be captured, or that lady goes, or that personnel goes on leave. That you have somebody else that capture that supplier invoices. And then we have a setting that if there is certain items, and sometimes you can identify certain items that will always go in a minus. And that items, you can rather set up the warehouse to do not allow negative values, but only certain items do you allow to go into negative value. So especially the high value items, you must never set that up to go into a negative value. And also your schedule medication, does it go into a negative value? Because you can lose your license and your practice can be closed if you don't have stock control over schedule medication. For instance, schedule 5, 6, and 7. So make sure that all of that process is in place. Now, to go to your item management changes on items, I'm going to show you this item process now. I'm first going to go on with a certain list, how to make the item active and so on. I'm just going to open that port. Okay. I'm going to say close here because everything is now saved and closed. That was our item management, minimum and maximum levels. So now to do your item management, you go to stock setup, you go to stock. Then you will see you have your materials and your medicine, depending on which one do you want to go in. Let's take materials. We say okay. You will open, when the system opens, you will have a blank list. That doesn't mean you don't have any items. It's just when all of the items shows, then the loading of the screen takes a little bit longer. We have a setting that if you want the screen to open immediately with all the items, then we can change that setting. Just keep it in mind. Otherwise, you start typing for the item, or you can just say find or enter. Then it will show you all of the active items. Here on the right hand side, you will see active items. So it's only the active item that shows. Active with no sale or otherwise inactive. Then all the red ones, so the item will be indicated as red if it's inactive. And then you have your all, and that will show active and inactive items. Now if we take, for instance, glove, let's say small. Now what is nice on this screen, we have a partial search. So if I only say GLO and we say SML and I say enter, it will give me all of the items that have a GLO in. Doesn't matter if it's in the front or at the back. And it will also give me the items that have a SML in. Doesn't matter if it's in the front or the back or in the middle. So depending on your search, how you search, it will give you the correct information. And say for instance, I need to see powder free. I can say P and F and enter, and it will show me all of the gloves that is powder free. Now the best way always is your Nappi Code. But unfortunately, not all the suppliers on their supplier invoices supply you with the Nappi Code. And that's where the problem comes in. And that's why you need to search according to the description. But if you have the Nappi Code, please search according to the Nappi Code. That's always your best way to go with the stock items. Now, here you can see sometimes that is really nice. The code at the back will be displayed on the boxes that you receive from the supplier. Now here we're going to say, for instance, we have this glove exam glove, latex, but it's powder free small. And on this page you will see the triangle, and that means edit. So we will say edit. Here you can see the quantity and the value that is on your system right now. Here you make the item active or inactive depending. So when it's a new item that you never bought before and now it's the first time you're going to buy it, you will first search for the item but on all, then edit the item, make the item active and then save. But remember, check the price, check if you're using subclasses, you add a subclass. Okay. Now, just on the screen, you will always need, the items will automatically be linked to the correct ledger account. But when you create your own items, we will come to that part, but when you create your own items, please remember that that item is not on Medprax, it's not on IQest. You need to update that item manually every day or every week, or when that item gets price updates or the Nappi Code is discontinued, you need to update that manually. So the best solution always is to, when there is an item not on the Medprax list or on the IQest list, please email Medprax or IQest immediately and tell them, please add this item. This is a new item. It's not on the list. Please add it for me. Then you know Medprax and IQest will update this weekly or daily, depending on which one do you use. Okay, so always make sure that the ledger account is linked. So if you create your own item, then you say plus. We will come to that also, but I'm going to show you. You will say plus. Remember, medicine starts with a GMED, or material starts with a 0201. So you will type in the code there. Now on the screen, ledger account, you will link it to the correct ledger account. Is the material or is the medicine? And that income account is linked to a cost of sales account. Okay. Then you have your Nappi Code. Now the Nappi Code's first digits is the indication of the item, and then the last 3 digits is normally the indication of the pack size. Now it's not that it says 001 and that means the pack size is 1 pack, but it shows you how many different pack sizes does the item have. Now, say for instance, this is a glove and this is a single one because the pack size is 111. So that means it's for 1 glove. Now, they can sell it in singles or they can sell it in a box of 100, and then you will have maybe a 002 but with a pack size of 100. So that is just an indication of how many pack sizes the supplier do allow, of not allow, but do sell. So the manufacturer will always have, if it's a glove and it's exactly the same glove, the first 6 or 7 digits will always be the same for that type of item. And the last 3 will differ with every pack size, what they register. Okay. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, please let us know in the live chat that I can explain that better. Then you have your schedule, and then the item type. You have your standard items, that is all of your items. Your first in, first out method, if you want to work like that. But that is a big process and there's a lot of setup, so please let us know. But most of the scenarios that we have is always on a standard. Then you have your non-stock items. Now, non-stock items, please remember, the system, if the item is set up as a non-stock item, the system will not keep movement on that item. Okay, so that normally you will set up as a delivery fee or an admin fee that is also on your supplier invoices. You can set that items up as a non-stock item, and then there will be no movement on that item. You will still be allowed to capture that item with your supplier invoices, so the purchases will still be available to see how many that you buy from the supplier, but there will be no movement on that item, and also you will not be able to sell that items. Okay, then this is not applicable anymore. We keep this in the background and we are busy taking this part out, the medicine type. Then you have your charge types. Now normally you have discount plus charge, so this just allow you to be able to give discount on this item. No discount means that items are not allowed to have discount on if you are going to work with discounts, but you can leave it on discount plus charge. Then you have no charge. That is items that is included maybe in a global fee, or is included into your consultation fee, or otherwise items that you're not allowed to charge, but you need to put it onto the patient's account that the stock levels can go down. So say for instance gloves, you do not charge the patient for gloves, but you're using the gloves always. Then you can put it on as no charge. When you bill it on the patient's account, it will always be with an amount of 0. So the rand value will be 0. Then you have the private items. Only when you put on the private tick is when the item is always sold as a private item. So you know this item, no medical aid is paying for this item. Then you can put it on to private, and when you bill these items, it will always bill as a private item on that patient's account. Okay. Then you have your pack size, and then you have your list price, your markup percentage, and then your sales price. Please remember, on the sales price, when you're using the SEP rules of the medical aid, this sales price will still be putting on a markup, or the SEP rule will still be applicable onto the sales price. Okay. Then here you have your negative stock levels. So you tell this item, must he use the warehouse configuration, or must he do something else than what the warehouse configuration tells you. Okay. You have your detail. All of this information you will receive from Medprax or IQest, the manufacturer, the volume, the percentage, the effective date, the strength. All of the information comes from Medprax. Then you have your stock levels breakdown. So this tells you in all the different warehouses how many quantity do you have left, and then local information, expiry date, batch number, and this is not yet applicable. Okay. Now, is there any questions according to this screen? Make sure that you understand all of this information, and if you have questions, because this is a really big board, if you don't understand this screen, none of the stock management processes and the way forward is going to make sense. Okay, so to make the item active, make sure you say active here, and if you have to create your own items, please let this be really minimal, and you have to have a good reason why you're adding the item yourself and not doing it through Medprax or IQuest. So you just click on plus. This is a material, so we will start with 0201. Immediately it will turn red because this code already exists. So you need to put in something after that is unique. Now, say for instance we're going to create a delivery fee. I put in DEL, then I say delivery fee. I'm telling them it's a material, so please link it to Inc 2. Nappi code, this item doesn't have a Nappi code, so I type in 9999, 6 9s and 3 9s. Schedule is 0, pack size is 1. My list price is 100 Rand, or normally I will make this 0 and the markup 0, because every supplier have their own delivery fee. So you need to type it in when you use this item on the billing screen, on the supplier's purchase screen. And then I say, okay. So it's as easy as that to create a new item. But keep in mind that this item will not be updated by Medprax. Okay. Now just to go back to the Learning Center, item management is make sure the active and inactive items. Oh yes, and if you want to make an item inactive again, you just go to stock setup. So that means you do not use this item anymore. You're not keeping it. The Nappi code has changed, or there's a better manufacturer or a new manufacturer in the market. So then you go to stock, you go to materials or medicine, search for the correct item that you want to make inactive, click on that item, click on the edit button and say inactive and okay. Just make sure the system will not make that item inactive if there is still quantity in your practice of that item. So first you have to do a stock transfer or a stock adjustment depending on the reason why you still have stock left of this item, and then you can make it inactive. Okay. Now go back to the Learning Center. You have your ledger account, allocation, your item type, your charge type, markup, stock levels, and then your local information. Now we did discuss now the active and inactive items. We did discuss the Medprax and IQuest updates. Medprax or IQuest will always update the description, the pack size, the Nappi codes, the list price, the schedule, the generic information, and also the detail tab. Okay, so please make sure of that. And then make sure we're going to show you now the excluding of the items. I will come back to the discontinued stock right now. I just want to show you the exclude, how to exclude it. So when you go to stock setup, materials for instance, and we want to say this blade, we want to change the description and we want to put in there an extra description that says this blade is blue. Now if I say okay and Medprax update come next week, that blue is going to be away. So you need to say, you click on the item, you say item actions, Medprax exclusions, and then you click on description there on the top, and it will only exclude the description for you. If you want to exclude the whole item from Medprax, you say check all, and all of this information will be excluded from Medprax. So depending on what type of information you want to exclude and Medprax mustn't update that, then you can click here. So say for instance the sales price. If you don't want Medprax to update the sales price for you, then you click on the exclusions. Okay, and then you say okay, let's just untick, okay, and then the item will be excluded from Medprax. Now create new items and edit items we did discuss. Nappi Codes is really important. If you do not know the Nappi Code, there's a really nice website, MediCredit. It's free, so you can go and search for the correct Nappi Code on MediCredit, and you can send that information to Medprax to add that items for you. So if you go onto MediCredit's website, you will see there's a Nappi link, and there you can type in the description and you can find the correct Nappi Codes. Okay. If you create an item and the item doesn't have a Nappi code, that you will create as a 9999. Okay. Prices, remember, you have to keep the prices up to date. Medprax will always update the list price and the sales price, and also please make sure that your markup is correct. Medprax will update the SEP rule yearly. Okay, then you have your item linking. We're going to come to that now. Your subclasses, remember to add your subclass and plus it, link it to that item. Okay, so let's go back. We're going to discuss now the discontinued stock. Okay, if we look at this screen again, you will see the item management here on the top, the changes on items. When the item is discontinued, the item will always be active in your system. And now, say for instance, you always use this type of glove. Now they don't make it anymore and they discontinue this item. Now you need to buy new items, new gloves that you have to search for. But first, you must go and correct that item. So you will use that item up until you don't have stock anymore. Then the discontinue item, you will search for it. Your stock levels must be 0. You unlink it from your counting location. We will come to that part now. And then you make the item inactive. Perfect. Easy as that. If the item is discontinued and there's other item or the Nappi code has changed because the pack size is not used anymore. So for instance, you always bought this item as a 50 pack. Now the supplier decides he doesn't want to keep the 50 pack anymore. It's only going to keep 100 pack, but you still have an open pack of the 50. You don't have to go and make that now discard of all of that items. You can still use that items, but you have to transfer that items to the correct new Nappi code, because the Nappi code is definitely going to be changed. So now on this, you will have a look at this picture on the bottom. Now you will start, the item will be active. The Nappi code has changed. So this old Nappi code stock levels must be transferred with a stock adjustment from the one Nappi code to the other one. You have to unlink the old Nappi code and make it active. You have to link the new Nappi code to the correct counting locations and also make that item then active. Okay. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, please ask questions and tell us if there is anything that doesn't make sense. Okay. Now to go back to our learning center again. Okay. Discontinued items we have discussed. We are going to do the item linking now. Let me just go and open GoodX for you. Okay. After your whole stock setup, you set up your warehouses, you set up your categories. Now, I just want to show you, when you set up a warehouse, you click on plus, you create the Afrikaans name and the English name for your warehouse. You tell the warehouse, is it a allow negative labels or allow negative labels with warning, or do not allow negative labels. Only one warehouse must be set up as use warehouse as default when receiving stock, and then you click on issuing method. Now this issuing method is not applicable for normal medical practices, only for practices that using a pharmacy or otherwise bigger hospitals that use theaters. Okay. So you type in all the information, and only one warehouse must be linked to the use warehouse as default when receiving stock. Then it's important that that warehouse that you have created is linked to the correct entity. Okay. Then also under stock setup, we have the categories. You will not have more than 2 categories, except when you want to manage your stationery or your groceries. You can also here speak to GoodX please first, and then we can create new categories for you, and we can put that onto this, for instance, stationery or otherwise groceries, if you want to manage that also through GoodX. Then you have your bins. Now when you create a new bin, you say plus, you give the bin, and this is our counting location. Okay, so create a new code for it. It must be unique, Afrikaans and English name, and then you say you will never set this up on your own. We already set up on all the installations a general bin, and that bin is used bin as default when receiving stock. You will only, when you create your own ones, your counting locations, you'll put in the code, the Afrikaans and in English descriptions, and then you will mark it as a counting location. Okay, then you say okay. Now important, after that you need to link it to a warehouse. So you will click on the bin warehouse linking, you click on the bin linking choose the correct warehouse, choose the correct bin or counting location, and you say link. Now it will give you a warning if it's already linked. If you have made a mistake, you can right click and you can say delete link. Just make sure that there's no items linked to that location. So that is your process when you create your own counting locations. So please just make sure that is all of this information is on the Learning Center. Okay. Now, after all of that processes, you will go to multi-item bin linking. Here you will see all of the different counting locations that are already there. So say for instance, we want to link an item to GoodX Sari warehouse. It is a material and I want to link it to the fridge. So I click on the fridge, double click. On the top, it shows you all the items that is already linked to this location. And on the bottom, you search for the items that is not yet linked to this location. Now, I'm going to say gloves, for instance. And I'm going to take that one. Double click and it will go to the top. Now, I also, in the fridge, I'm going to put in, let's say, a vial, Voltaren. Please remember the vials, you will find the vials under materials. So all of the vials will be under materials and not under medicine. Okay. So here is a Voltaren vial. The pack size is 5 and it's 25 milligram Voltaren. So I'm going to take that one, and I also want the Clofenac injections. The 100 one, double click and it will go up. Now what is really important, I just want to take a few, the DISC in front of the description doesn't mean discovery, it means discontinued. So that means that item is already being discontinued from the manufacturers. Now if this bin linking must be exactly the same picture as what is on that shelf or in that fridge with the correct order. So if the gloves is on the is the last item, I will drag it to the bottom. So you can just drag and drop. Okay. So if the Voltaren is the second one, I drag and drop. If the Clofenac is the first one, I drag and drop. So this is also the order that your counting location sheet, when you are going to do counting for your stock, it's going to print exactly in this order. Okay. Then please remember you have to save. If you do not save, all of your work will be gone. So save and then you say back. Okay. Is there any questions on how to link the items? So if you go to stock setup, you go to multi-item bin linking, you go to the correct one, double click, and then link your items here from the bottom, double click on it, put it onto the top, drag the item to the correct order, save, and go back. You must keep this up to date. Every time when you buy new items that you never received before, or when you change your practice, say for instance you take the fridge out of the one room and put it into another room, or you close one of the rooms and you're not going to use it anymore, or you build new cabinets, make sure that you update this information. Otherwise, when you go to stock take, you will have a really bad experience in your stock take. If this is up to date, every day, every time, make sure that you follow the process. Make sure when you make an item active that you automatically immediately link it to the correct locations, and then when you do a stock take, you know all of your locations is up to date and you don't struggle with items that is not onto your locations. Okay, please make sure of that. Now to print a barcode on an item, you go to stock setup. Please just make sure that your barcode settings is already set up by GoodX. If you do not use the barcodes now and you want to use it on a later stage, please let GoodX know that we set up your barcodes. Okay, and then you say okay, choose the correct item, say print print barcodes. You tell the system how many labels it must print, and you say okay. Now if you get this message, as how I got this message, that means your setup was not done. Okay, but otherwise it will give you a nice little barcode and you can print the barcode then. Okay, back to the link. Now the last thing on the item management is your negative stock levels. You must check that every day. If you tell the system the negative stock levels are allowed in your practice and you don't worry about that, then you must check why are these items going into a negative, and make sure that the reasons why this items is going to go into a negative, you must please make sure that you investigate these reasons and maybe try to get solutions that the items mustn't go into a negative. So when an item is in a negative and it has a minus in front of it, that means you don't have stock. You already use stock that you don't have in your practice. Okay, so please make sure of that. We have a question: why would the vials go under materials and not medicine? Unfortunately, that is not a GoodX decision, and Medprax decided on that. But as we normally explain to the client, is that a 0201 code can be claimed by the medical aid to be paid even if the doctor doesn't have a dispensing license. So the GMed, if you use a GMed code, then you must have a dispensing license. Otherwise, you will not be able to use the GMed codes, and the medical aids will not pay for it. But you're allowed to give the patient injections without a dispensing license. So that's why it's created under a 0201, that the medical aid still pays for it if you don't have a dispensing license. Otherwise, you can still use the GMed one, but the GMed one is also normally the patient goes home with that items. Okay. And then you need a dispensing license. Is there any other questions with the item management that we have to discuss? If there is any other questions, please ask it now that we can discuss it. Otherwise, we are going to go on with the stock purchases at around 11:30. So it's 6 minutes from now. So we can take a break for 6 minutes, and then 11:30 we will go on with the stock purchases. Thank you.